Do you know how many women have been left? Not because they were too broken, but because they were too whole, too complete, too unwavering, too unwilling to collapse for love. Men don't always run from chaos. Sometimes they run from clarity. From a woman who doesn't orbit his moods, who doesn't flinch when he withdraws, who doesn't beg to be seen. She is the anomaly, the disruption, the warning bell in a world that still teaches men to feel powerful only when someone else is small. Carl Jung once wrote that a man projects his anima, the inner feminine, onto a woman, not to know her, but to reclaim himself. But what happens when the woman he meets doesn't mirror his fantasy? What happens when she does not bend to fit the mold he imagined? What happens when she exists beyond his need? He begins to fear her, not because she is dangerous, but because she is free. A woman who doesn't need a man does not mean she cannot love. She can, deeply, soulfully, without condition. But her love isn't rooted in survival. It is rooted in choice. She's not here to be rescued. She is not here to be molded. She is here to meet, and only those who have faced their shadows can meet her without trembling. This is where the fear begins, in the man who has not yet descended into himself, who has not wrestled with his own emptiness, who has not dared to love himself without a mirror. He meets a woman who doesn't need him, and it threatens every illusion he holds. She doesn't react. She responds. She doesn't cling. She chooses. She doesn't lose herself in him. She finds herself beside him. And for the man who seeks control disguised as connection, this is unbearable. He will call her cold, distant, difficult. He will say she asks for too much, even as she asks for almost nothing. What she asks for is presence, not promises. Truth, not theatrics. And this is what makes her unforgettable, but also feared. Because she sees through masks. Because she doesn't fall for the facade of confidence when the energy underneath is fractured. She can feel his instability behind his charm. She can smell avoidance dressed up as independence. And she will not bow to it. She has bowed before. She has knelt in past lives, in past loves, in past versions of herself where she shrunk to fit the palm of someone's idea of enough. But no more. She has reclaimed her spine, her voice, her silence. And now, she walks with the gravity of a woman who will not betray herself to belong. This, to the unevolved man, is terrifying, because he was taught to be a provider, not a partner, to be strong, not seen, to impress, not connect. And when he meets a woman who needs none of that, who only wants truth, he panics, because he doesn't know if he has anything real to offer beyond the illusion. She doesn't need his money. She doesn't need his validation. She doesn't need his presence to feel whole. But she wants depth. She wants growth. She wants to be met at soul level without shrinking either of them. And that request, that demand for emotional maturity, it feels like a threat to the man still ruled by ego. So he pulls away. He says she's too much. But really, she's just too conscious to play pretend. She doesn't romanticize potential. She doesn't entertain half-love. She doesn't trade her wisdom for a seat at a table built on ego. She is the mirror, the myth, the modern, wild feminine. And the man who hasn't done the work will find her presence unbearable, not because she is cruel, but because she is clear. And in a world where many women still barter pieces of themselves for scraps of affection, her refusal to do so feels like rebellion. But it's not rebellion. It's evolution. She doesn't slam doors. She doesn't scream or demand explanations. She simply stops engaging with the emotional theater he's used to starring in. And that, more than any anger, is what shakes him. Because he was prepared to fight, to prove, to persuade. He was not prepared for her calm exit. He feels it not in her words, but in her absence, the kind of absence that lingers not like bitterness, but like a haunting. Because she didn't need to punish him. She simply withdrew the privilege of her presence. And once a man has felt the stillness of a woman who has made peace with herself, the noise of every other connection feels empty. He'll replay the moments, the way she listened without reacting, the way she smiled with her whole being but never used that smile as currency, the way she gave, not to win him, but because it was her nature to give from fullness, not emptiness. And the spiral begins. because no woman has ever made him feel like he had to become more of himself to keep her. He's used to women collapsing into him, morphing to fit his pace, compromising their needs to sustain his comfort. But she stayed rooted in herself, even as she reached for him. She stood on sacred ground and invited him to rise. And when he couldn't or wouldn't, she didn't shrink to meet him lower. She let him stay behind. This is not cruelty, it's consequence. Carl Jung warned us of this, that the feminine is not simply beauty and light. She is the vessel of transformation. She initiates, she disturbs, she births not only life, but awakening. And for a man not ready to awaken, this kind of woman becomes the thing he both craves and fears. Because loving her means confronting everything he has avoided, the masks, the posturing, the inherited beliefs of what it means to be a man. With her, performance dies, illusion dies, control dies. What remains is truth, raw, vulnerable, terrifying truth. And few are ready to hold that. She will never chase, because her path isn't shaped by lack. It's shaped by alignment. She doesn't need to prove her worth. Her presence proves it for her. She doesn't need to be chosen to feel validated. She is the choice for herself. And if he cannot rise to meet that energy, she will not fall to teach him. This, to the unconscious man, feels like abandonment. But it's not. It's accountability. It's her refusal to mother a partner. Her refusal to be worshipped one day and dismissed the next. Her refusal to carry a connection on her own while he hides behind unresolved wounds. So he fears her, because she has no strings to pull, because her love does not bend to avoid being alone, because her silence doesn't come from pride, but from peace. And when a woman operates from peace, not pain, the man who thrives on chaos finds himself irrelevant. That irrelevance burns. It shakes the identity he's built around being needed, around being the center, around being the savior. She doesn't need saving, and that terrifies him more than anything. Because if she doesn't need him, what is he? The answer to that question is one he must find alone. She cannot guide him through it. She cannot illuminate the cave he refuses to enter. She cannot wait on the shore while he flirts with transformation but avoids the plunge. She has her own journey now, and maybe one day, if he faces himself, not for her, but for the man buried beneath the noise, they might meet again. But not at the place they left off, at a place reborn, at a depth where equals meet without rescue or retreat. Until then, she walks on, not with malice, but with mastery. Her footsteps leave no trace. Not because she was never there, but because she belonged to no one, not even him. And this is the ultimate fear, that a woman can love you without needing to stay, that she can gift you intimacy, presence, and tenderness, and still choose herself when the path grows crooked, that she can cry for what could have been, then wipe her tears and walk away, softer, wiser, untouched by your inability to become. This is what terrifies the man still ruled by his ego, because he believed her strength came from attachment. He didn't understand that true feminine power is not loud, not forceful, not controlling. It's quiet knowing. It's sacred discernment. It's being able to open your heart wide and still walk away when your soul says no. She doesn't burn bridges. She lets them fade beneath the weight of her silence. And he, the man who thought himself irreplaceable, becomes just another lesson in her becoming. You see, when a woman no longer needs you to feel whole, she no longer fears your absence. And when she no longer fears your absence, you lose the power you thought you had. He mistook her softness for submission. He thought she would wait. He thought her patience meant she would tolerate anything. But her soul wasn't waiting. It was watching, seeing if he would rise. And when he didn't, she didn't beg. She bowed out. It's not that she lacks love. It's that her love has become refined. She knows now that a man's interest doesn't prove his worth. She knows now that consistency matters more than charm. She knows now that attention is not devotion and longing is not love. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And this is why men fear women who don't need them. because she doesn't play the game that keeps him distracted. She reflects his soul and then walks away if he won't face it. She becomes the reminder, not the wound, not the regret, not the villain, but the mirror he avoided and now can't forget. He'll try to recreate her energy in other women. He'll seek the same depth, the same gaze, the same quiet strength. But what he doesn't understand is that energy wasn't about her trying. It was about her being, and being like that is earned through fire, through grief, through sitting alone with your broken pieces and not rushing to glue them back just to be loved, through choosing your path even when it means walking away from someone you wanted, through letting go, not to prove a point, but to honor your peace. And when a woman does that, she stops being someone's muse. She becomes her own mythology. And he becomes the ghost of an old story, one that taught her the difference between being desired and being met. So she continues, rooted, reverent, unreachable to anyone not anchored in their own truth. She doesn't need a man, but she's ready to be met by one, not the one who panics at her power, not the one who punishes her for her clarity, not the one who calls her too much because he refuses to deepen, but the man who sees her and instead of fearing her wholeness, rejoices in it. He will not arrive wearing armor. He will not come with rehearsed lines or illusions of control. He will stand bare, not perfect, but real, because only the man who has met the wilderness within himself can honor the woman who has made peace with hers. He will not seek to rescue her from solitude. He will recognize it as sacred. He will not try to penetrate her mystery to possess it. He will sit beside it quietly and protect its fire. He will not fear her silence. He will understand it as a sanctuary. And she will not be dazzled by his pursuit. She has seen that before. It fades. She will be moved by his presence, his stillness, his capacity to remain open while she unfolds. This is not a love of dominance and dependence. It is not the echo of old wounds calling each other home. This is union, forged not in fear, but in freedom. He has known the ache of loss. He has spiraled in the absence of the woman he couldn't hold. But instead of blaming her for the pain, he used it. He turned toward the mirror. He faced the inner chaos, the unworthiness, the need to be needed. He shed the identities he wore to feel safe, the hero, the provider, the alpha. And in doing so, he found something deeper. The man who no longer fears a woman's independence is the man who has made peace with his own. He does not demand that she need him. He delights when she doesn't, because her not needing him does not threaten his value. It reveals it. He becomes a man by choice, not performance. A partner, not a controller. A mirror, not a mask. And now, when he meets her, the woman who once walked away, it is not with longing. It is not with apology. It is not with desperation. It is with reverence, not for her body, but for her becoming, for the fire she carried through every heartbreak, for the way she turned loss into wisdom, for the silence she wrapped around her leaving, not as punishment, but as prayer. Because the woman who doesn't need you is not rejecting you. She's refusing to betray herself for love. And that kind of woman cannot be kept. She can only be met. If you are that woman, know this: your absence will echo louder than your words ever could. Your peace will disturb more than your protest. Your clarity will draw in only those who are brave enough to match it. You are not intimidating. You are initiating men into their wholeness, into their honesty, into the kind of connection that does not bind, it awakens. And to the man who fears this, let him go. Let him spiral. Let him speak of your strength as if it were sin. Because the path of a sovereign woman is not one of waiting. It is one of walking unapologetically, freely, and fully in her truth. And when she finally meets the man who honors that truth, she will not shrink in gratitude. She will stand beside him, not because she needs to be held up, but because she has finally been seen. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses.